Hello and welcome into the Touchdown NFL podcast, week 10 in the books. Myself and Willow here to bring you all of our takes from this weekend's action. Not joined by Taib this week, which thankfully for me as a Chargers fan, I'm quite glad of. But no, I'm sure he'll be back next week. Willow, my guy, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, I'm sick of the NFL now. I've had enough. What are we 10 weeks in? Falcons. They didn't bother listening to the podcast last week. Apparently, I'm not going to go on another Falcons rant because we'll be doing that every single week at this point. But I'm glad that the Falcons are in a bye week this coming week, so I get to enjoy that. Just get to not think about it for a little while. Otherwise, pretty good week in the old. We'll talk about some of the games and whatever, but I found it sort of pretty enjoyable. This was the first week. I think it's the only week all season actually that we were the 9 o'clock slate, the sort of the later slate. So I got to enjoy Red Zone at 6, and that was a lot of fun. Don't usually get to do that. Some really good games in that early slate. One of them, again, I want to talk about quite a bit, but otherwise, pretty good weekend. It's been raining, so apart from that, nothing else to report.
All the more reason to stay in and watch what was, well, if you were able to stay well into the night, it was, well over 12 hours of football, isn't it? Because obviously it was the final international series game. I'm not going to lie, didn't watch it, didn't plan to watch it, was vindicated in that decision as the Patriots and the Colts matched up, and it was 10-6 to the Colts. Yeah, just wasn't worth my time. Like you say, especially with the rest of the football that was to come as well, because the 6 o'clock slate was really good. Obviously, I watched the Chargers and the Lions, which was a really good game for the neutral. Again, we'll talk about that. So, yeah, no, a really good week of football. Some really excellent performances from some teams, some players. And, let's get into it. So, usual 3 segments we'll go through, or 4 really, for kind of predictions. Talk about our biggest takeaway or talking point of the weekend. I think yours is a bit more interesting. Mine's a bit more dour. So let's kick off with yours.
Yeah, 49ers are good again. They've had their little blip, and they just slapped the Jaguars across the field for the full 3 hours. At no point did it look like Jacksonville had much of a response to what the 49ers were doing. There was a very strange. It should have been more points. Number one, 49ers should have scored more points. There was a defensive touchdown which was pulled back because the 49ers bench didn't realize that it was over, or the play was still going rather, so they decided to get on the field, and then that was a whole thing. Hilarious as I'm trying to explain that to somebody who doesn't watch the sport sort of regularly, just kind of going, what's going on? Why isn't it a touchdown? It's like, well, they were on the field. It's like, yeah, but they're all on the field. Like, yeah, I know, but they shouldn't be. Anyway, but yeah, they've had their blip. They lost 3 games in a row. You can argue that they probably, they certainly it feels like they should have won at least 2 of those, and it certainly affected their perception sort of league wide. I wrote a thing, I wrote in 5 Wide a couple of weeks ago about how I thought the 49ers were going to be fine on the basis that they kind of do this every year. Like last couple of years, they've started worse than this. They've started like 3-4 last 2 seasons and made the NFC Championship game. So they're miles ahead of where they usually are at this stage. It got to the point on Sunday where they could just give the ball to Christian McCaffrey over and over and over again, because he was on some sort of touchdown record. I think it was like 17 games scoring a touchdown or something, and he didn't get there because the Jaguars figured out what they were doing, which was sad. It was just such a one-sided statement, not necessarily a statement win, but sort of one where you go, oh yeah, they can be really good, and so they were. I think they're largely over the injuries that have plagued them recently. Obviously, Deebo Samuel was back in for a bit. I think Brock Purdy looked a lot more comfortable against the Jaguars team, who has sort of found themselves over the last month or so. That talked about their trip in London last month. They came off of that and sort of thrived as a result. 49ers are a good team. That's my big takeaway. Is they've kind of been rubbish for a bit, and now they're going to be good again. So we get to enjoy that.
It was an enjoyable game, I thought, overall, because as much as the Jags, they scored 3 points, I thought they more than played their part. they were a little bit unlucky with some drives and some turnovers. Trevor he just has got this in him, hasn't he, where he just like gives the ball away in really boneheaded ways, like with the interception. I know it came off the receiver's hands and things like that, but he was just a poor bit of play, really. But I thought the Jags played their part. I think you're right in the fact that the 49ers are good. And I want to kind of preface what I'm going to say with, I still think the Jags are good. Like before this, they won 5 games. They look like a very good football team. I think this is just the levels and tiers in the league, isn't it? The 49ers are, in my opinion, like a tier 1 team. The Jags are striving to be that. They're not quite there yet. You know, they've got the pieces in most ways, but just not quite in every single way. And you know, this kind of showed because the 49ers kind of announced themselves to be back. I think Debo being back, as much as his box score stats wasn't, you know, the most outstanding. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle definitely took the headlines, and Christian McCaffrey obviously goes without saying. They took the headlines in that regard. But then obviously, I think just having that extra superstar available to you, even if you don't use them on every play, I think was really big. But yeah, no, the Jags, like you say, I think they're going to be absolutely fine as well. I think they need to get Calvin Ridley involved a lot more. I think it's a kind of a bit of one of the big mysteries of the Jag season, and maybe like not the NFL season as a whole, because I don't think Calvin Ridley's that big of a deal in terms of the whole NFL. But it's kind of odd that they don't use him so much, and whether that's him kind of, you know, getting back into football shape. I mean, it's week 10, so maybe not that big of a reason now, but, you know, just assimilating to the offense and things like that. I don't know, because Christian Kirk, they obviously paid him big money, so maybe it's a good thing from the Jags' point of view that he's getting so much of the run. But, you know, you got Calvin Ridley in there. He was, in my mind, supposed to be the number 1 receiver, and he's just not being. I think we've discussed this, obviously, with your Falcons background. I think we've discussed this previously, but definitely something that the Jags could tap into and use him a bit more. I think I could then, a little bit like what I've just said about Deebo Samuel, just give him that extra edge in the receiving game and just kind of relieve some of that pressure from Trevor that he's just maybe feeling sometimes when he just throws these interceptions and, you know, throws the game away in some ways. But yeah, this was a big statement performance from the 49ers, and like I say, announce themselves in the same way that maybe we were talking about the Bengals, or I was talking about the Bengals a couple of weeks ago, like kind of re-announce themselves and saying they're back. And I think we can say the same for the 49ers now.
Yeah. Just want to pose a bit of possibly the spiciest take I'll come out with this season. Are we sure that Trevor Lawrence is really, really good? Because we're sort of 3 years in now, and he's still making some really silly mistakes, and he's got the players around him to kind of, you can't really turn around and say, well, it's the talent, it's the sort of offensive line, or this, that, and the other. He can make something out of nothing quite regularly. But he also makes decisions that you would expect from somebody playing in their first or second season. And this is sort of 2.5 years, 3 years or whatever into his sort of NFL career. He was the most hyped prospect in, well, certainly since I've been watching, as far as I can think at least. Do we need to have a conversation about Trevor Lawrence kind of long term, or is he actually going to be fine? Where are we on him? Who is he?
So my take on who it is the eternal line of this podcast series. I personally think he, like you say, he was really revered, probably the most revered quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, who came out in 2012. So, you know, best part of a decade is between them. I think he is very good, but he's not maybe matched up to that level of hype that was kind of him at Clemson, him all the way through high school. You know, he was like like the anointed number 1 pick, almost from like being in high school all the way through Clemson, then into the NFL. But I think the big caveat, and almost like the bit that kind of gives him a little bit of credit in the bank outside of his general play, is the fact that this first year was an absolute disaster because the Jags made one of the worst hires in NFL history. And how much has that affected his development? Because since Doug Pederson's come in, you know, he's been pretty good. One thing he needs to cut out is the stupid turnovers, as I said before. You know, stupid interceptions, fumbles, which he does far too much. I think if we are still asking ourselves this question in 12 months' time, then I think we can maybe start to have a bit more of maybe a negative outlook on what Trevor Lawrence is and whether he's not going to ever hit that ceiling. However, if we're, you know, turning around in 12 months' time, thinking back to this conversation we had and going, oh yeah, he's got out of the turnovers, you know, week 10 of the 2024 season, and he's barely got any turnovers, then, you know, maybe he's turned that corner. But I do think that first year was not normal by anyone's standards, and for a young quarterback with the weight of the whole franchise on his shoulders, that must have been tough. And the rebound has been pretty substantial from year one to year two with an actual NFL head coach, I would say. But that's my take anyway.
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's easy to forget just how awful just across the board that first sort of Trevor Lawrence season was. Not, I mean, again, not something that he can be held accountable for. That was entirely a coaching issue. I use the word coaching loosely there. That was entirely a personality issue. But yeah, no, I think that's probably fair. Just trying to jump the gun a bit, and I try and get in there with the "I told you so." So I'll hold fire on that one for the time being.
It's definitely worth raising. There's a point that I don't think you're wrong to raise it at all, because like I said, the projection from all the way through his pre-NFL career, I'll say, to now isn't matching up, and the expectations were insanely high, so it would have been difficult to do so. But we'll talk about some other quarterbacks later on who. And maybe it goes back to that thing where it's just better to underpromise and overdeliver, and it's maybe difficult for Trevor Lawrence to kind of deliver on what was the promise that he had, as a young quarterback before the NFL. I don't know, but yeah, I just think it's unfair to mention. But yeah, I think in my opinion, I think I'll give it a do-over in 12 months' time, and we'll see. But we'll see then.
I think that's fair.
So, relating to quarterbacks is my actual biggest takeaway and talking point. And maybe it's not just for this week, maybe it's just from the season so far, but it's QB injuries. And I think that quarterback injuries in some ways really killed the season for a lot of teams or severely hampered it. We've got Aaron Rodgers, for example, my first example, Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, a franchise in pretty much omni-turmoil. I don't know if that's a word, but you can kind of see what I mean. They've got the defense. We were talking just before we got on about the opposite scenario with the Chargers. The Jets have the defense. They just need the quarterback. They get the quarterback. They almost not use him as a tool, but obviously they've got the quarterback coming out of a really terrible situation for him in Green Bay. He's more than willing to take a pay cut and do everything in his power to make it as easy as possible for the Jets. And then 5 snaps into the season or whatever it was that his accolades goes. The Giants situation, they're on Tommy DeVito. Not as much as Daniel Jones isn't great and things like that. Tyrod Taylor, competent at best. It's just tanked the Giants season. Anthony Richardson comes in, looks really promising. Shoulder injury out for the year. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow have been hampered by injuries. Derek Carr's been in and out. The Raiders situation's been a mess. There's not just it's not every quarterback by any means, but it really hamstrings some potential real contenders like the Jets, like the Bengals, and then some exciting teams as well, like the other ones. And then on the opposite end of the scale, it just makes it just writes off the season for bad teams, doesn't it? Like the Giants and the Raiders. It might work out to be the better for the best, because it might mean that they've got good picks on the way, but it's not great for the paying fans, is it? And the teams as a whole who have good players on them. All these teams have good players on them who are just written off for the season. And I think it's more than usual. I think quarterback injuries have really hit teams hard so far this season. It's almost like taking away from the quality of the season a little bit for me. And I'm not saying that as a bitter Chargers fan, because Justin Herbert's now been injured in a way that means he can still play, but not to his best for 2 years in a row. I mean, I am quite bitter about that, but that's not why I'm saying this. But yeah, it's I think contributing towards the narrative that the defense is getting back on top as well, which I think is down to a bit of bad quarterback play or inexperienced quarterback play in some sense as well. But yeah, that's my big takeaway, which can work out in a positive, which I'll come on to in my game of the week next. But yeah, it's just been a bad year for quarterbacks. Let's say that.
It has, yeah, and I think there's a conversation that is constantly ongoing with the NFL in relation to how you minimise sort of player injuries, not exclusive to quarterbacks. There's been a lot of talk about the artificial turf over sort of real grass, and whether or not that sort of contributes to whether or not a player is more likely to get injured in certain scenarios. I read when stood in queue to see Fall Out Boy last week. I read an interview that somebody, I can't quite remember where it was. They did an interview with a sort of an Achilles specialist to talk about the Aaron Rodgers sort of situation and the fact that he is apparently just ready to go. He's walking, he's throwing the ball absolutely fine, and obviously he used a experimental, uncommon. It's not experimental. It's uncommon and also very expensive. So obviously, professional athlete Aaron Rodgers can afford it, and then can therefore say, "Oh, it's unconventional," because it kind of. It's just sort of one of those things where the doctor's basically gone. Him and Kirk Cousins obviously suffered the same type of injury. They're in that sort of sweet spot where you are sort of between 35 and 40. You are more susceptible to sort of Achilles injuries. So it's like there's no great conspiracy in relation to the turf. It's just he is an aging quarterback who is playing a game against incredibly powerful opposition players, and something's going to happen eventually. It's totally derailed it's largely derailed the Jets season. Like you talked about their perpetual pain that the organization is. They really needed something to kind of go their way. And they kind of had it and it didn't, and that's kind of sad. I don't know any Jets fans though, so I can't really get a gate. Clearly they're not going to be happy about it, but if Rodgers is going to be returning as quickly as he expects to be, or thinks he can, that's going to be interesting to watch if they are in a position to sort of jump on one of the 1,000 playoff spots. You're right in relation to the quarterback sort of position. If you don't have teams can spend an eternity trying to find one good quarterback, let alone one capable of stepping in when your one good quarterback kind of goes down. Some teams spend forever trying to find a quarterback and then never find one. Like I'm watching this sport for about 15 years. I think what the Chicago Bears' best quarterback in that time is probably Jay Cutler, and it's just kind of like, okay, great. Like if you get somebody who is legitimately good, if they get injured, what chance do you can find ways to sort of mitigate it and work around it, but you're never going to be at that level that you can get to with Aaron Rodgers or with sort of Danny Dimes. I feel bad for Tommy DeVito because he's been thrust into this position that he's clearly not equipped for. Now we're having to make memes about him living with his parents, and it's just kind of like, feels weird. The Anthony Richard one kind of sucks because he looked really fun, and I don't necessarily think he was doing himself any favors. He kind of put himself in positions to get hurt, but the Colts also didn't do a very good job of trying to not put him in those positions. We'll see how that affects his development down the line, but that's somebody who we were all quite excited about. You touched on the Raiders. I do want to talk about the Raiders one because this is one scenario where I would argue that a quarterback injury has probably helped them more than it has hindered them. You will talk about the other one coming on. I know what you're referring to when you say the other one. But I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is very good. And I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo was very good at all this year. I don't know if Aiden O'Connell's that good, but he seems to have the belief of the offense. He seems to have the belief of the guys around him. The bits and pieces that I've seen of him, he looks just like a rookie quarterback. He looks comfortable in some situations and uncomfortable in other situations. But he's comfortable in situations where he can throw to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. And like if I'm the Raiders, who are now on a winning streak, and alive in whatever battle they want to be in, I'm looking at that and going, well, if we can develop this guy and sort of be good down the line, that's a net win for us. And that wasn't possible with Jimmy Garoppolo being 100% healthy. No slight on him. It's never nice to get injured, obviously. But that's arguably, I would argue, one situation where a team can potentially benefit from a player getting injured. We'll see. Obviously, but it's difficult. You can't sort of judge a player off 4 games or whatever he's played, but there's something there, I think. But yeah, by and large, if you're a team with a good quarterback and they get hurt, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, it's a tough one, especially those ones where the player is like just fit enough to play, because you're looking at them sort of. We talk about Burrow at the start of the season, and he's really struggling to sort of step into his throws, and you're looking, you go, man, if only they could just like have an extra week. But now, I mean, he looks pretty sharp to me. He can zip the ball around here and then, but they just weren't capable of giving him the extra time to recover, and it's hurt them in the long run. But you can't replace him. I'm just saying the same things, so I'm going to stop. But yeah, he's just you can't replace your number one quarterback completely. You can find ways around it again, but it's a tough one, and it's a real backbreaker if you lose your guy for multiple weeks.
No, you're right. And just to swing back to the Raiders situation, I think from the outset, it wasn't good news, was it? Because Jimmy Garoppolo was, talked about not passing a physical, his foot injury is still hampering him. So maybe this was always on, the writing on the wall. Maybe this is why, it was always doomed to fail. But, Aiden O'Connell's done well. I think I chucked it in there because I think it's obviously not what they planned. They planned to roll with Garoppolo and obviously Josh McDaniels. He's got a previous relationship from the Patriots and things like that. They didn't want to play Aiden O'Connell this year. It's working out okay with them. Obviously, they've won the last two. They're 500. They're second in the AFC West. And that's, I guess, by virtue of, I suppose the AFC North kind of changes that. But I was going to say by virtue of being 500, they're kind of on the cusp of being playoff contenders. But the AFC North absolutely destroying, well, everyone, aren't they? The whole division's got a winning record, so maybe not. But yeah, maybe they will. Maybe you're right. Maybe they will work out for it to be the better side of things, because Aiden O'Connell, comes on, he's reasonable, until they can get, someone who's that extra level above. But you don't want to become what the Cleveland Browns were, and I guess still are with Deshaun Watson as well. Like, still searching for that franchise guy. Years and years later, you don't ever want to enter that. Like you say, you can have one end of the spectrum, like the Packers, for example, going from one Hall of Fame to the other, to that, and there's a lot in the middle, and that maybe that's what the Raiders are going to be. But yeah, obviously, just like I said, just threw it in because it's not what they planned. But yeah, it's not been great. It's not been great all round. But like I say, we'll use this as a segue into the games of the week, and I'll kick off because I was obviously referencing the Vikings and Josh Dobbs. What a story this is. First of all, I have to celebrate my own ballsy callsy. If you've not seen this, touchdown every Sunday, about an hour or so before the games kick off. We always ask you for your ballsy callsies. Basically, we want you to back an underdog. We want it to be a ballsy call for you to back an underdog. Like I say, keep an eye out on Sunday afternoons for us to put that out. And my one this weekend, my second one of the season, I don't do too well in these, was to back the Vikings against Saints, which weren't huge underdogs, but still, a quarterback's been in there for like a week and a bit. But yeah, what a story! This kid is making himself a lot of money with these performances. 2 out of 2 in terms of wins. And it also, with how he kind of conducts himself on TikTok and things like that, I think he's making a real name for himself as well. He was in the Cardinals team store saying, why haven't they got his jersey in the team store when he was there? Obviously went to the Vikings, didn't even know his teammates' names and things like that. It's obviously been talked about a lot in the last week or so. I just hope he gets paid. However, whether that be the Vikings or someone else, I really hope he doesn't get paid huge money to be a starter, because I kind of want this to be crystallized. I want him to have a nice life, being a career backup, because as we all know, career backup in the NFL, getting paid millions of dollars to basically do not a lot, is the best job in the world. He's done that, and in some cases been a third string QB. I hope he gets Jacoby Brissett, top end backup money to sit behind the start and have a nice life. I don't know whether he'll turn into a pumpkin if he gets that start in sport, and he's done really well so far. I don't know whether that'll happen even in the end of this season or by the end of this season. It's an amazing story. He's been traded twice, and like I say, he's won 2 out of 2 for the Vikings. He deserves all the plaudits right now. And, he's making incredible plays as well. Like, he's not like doing this through fluke or anything like, he's doing it through good quarterback play. And, he's been on the Steelers. Surely they could do with him right now as well, because Kenny Pickett isn't looking like it, but that's by the by. So yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of shout out the Vikings kind of making it work. Like I say, Kirk Cousins going down, pretty catastrophic injury, horrendous situation for him personally. The Vikings and Kevin O'Connell making it work, making the swing, getting Josh Dobbs. After, like we've been talking about, I've been talking about, that the Cardinals were at least fun to watch, as much as they kind of always want to lose and were doing. But Josh Dobbs was doing well. He's looking like a good player. They've making swing to get into Minnesota. He's doing the same. And like I say, all power to them. And this is a great win against the Saints. Like I say, underdog coming through. Just a quick one on the Saints before I chuck it over to you. Like, just give it up. Like, you've been this poster child for kicking the can down the road. It's now time to stop and just admit that you're not good. Like, don't pay Derek Carr loads of money. Just get younger and rebuild. That's all I'll say to Saints fans. But yeah, what did you make of this game? Did you see much of this game at all?
Yeah, so again, it's one of the sort of the red zone sort of things. The second half was such a weird sort of scenario on red zone, because end of the first half, Vikings are just all over the Saints. It's so funny. I'm just going, man, this is great. And then the second half, it kind of looked like they're coming back. I'm just like, oh, what are we doing? But I'm not sort of seeing it because I haven't got it on. It's just kind of like, it's just a weird. I'm checking Google and it's like, oh no, the Saints are like one score down now. It just Josh Dobbs is such a like I can't really say anything more on him that you already haven't said. It's such a really fun story. I would love to see how far he can take this, or they can take this with him. Like, in terms of like falling into a scenario where you can continue this wave that you are on. They've got Justin Jefferson coming back soon. Like, in terms of just like adding an extra element to all the stuff you're doing already, it's just like, how lucky has this guy been this year to go from the worst team in the league to a team that is actually kind of sneaky. I've been sort of not slating them. I've been chipping away at their one score record from last season. That was my thing at the start of the year, and it doesn't seem they seem to actually be quite good. So maybe I'm wrong in that regard. But no, this was a really good game for somebody who does not like the New Orleans Saints. I very much enjoyed this particular result. Just on the point at the end, the Saints giving up. Number one, yes, please do just give up for a bit. That'd be great. But number two, it kind of harks back to a point I made last week, in that the rest of the division is bad, and they can kind of justify kicking it down the can because they have like a genuine shot at winning the division with one of the worst rosters in the NFL. I mean, that whole division is appalling, and they at the moment are the best of that bunch, which is horrendous to say from a league talent perspective. But yeah, no, this was a really good game, and it was one of those ones that came sort of close to the end. Jameis coming in at the end and making a few plays and giving sort of making the case for him. If we want to talk about players potentially being given another chance, I don't see a scenario where he's back as a Saints backup next season. Somebody's going to give him the chance to be a bridge quarterback, I guess. The Dobbs thing reminds me a little bit of, I don't want to go overboard, and I don't want to sort of make too many obvious comparisons, but I get the same feeling watching him with the Vikings right now as I did Case Keenum, the Vikings, that one year that they sort of went to the NFC sort of championship game. In that he's very clearly limited, but right now he's playing well beyond his limitations. Like, he's in a zone that nobody expected him to be able to reach. Whether or not that lasts until the end of the season, or whether or not that even lasts into wherever he goes next season, be that back at the Vikings as some sort of the best case scenario, I think, for a team would be, we'll get Josh Dobbs in and a rookie, and we'll let him sort of. This is kind of similar to what the Vikings, the Cardinals did this year with, we'll get Joshua Dobbs in and then bring Kyler Murray back when he's fit. We'll get him in and then we'll let this rookie just learn how to be a quarterback in the NFL. That's like a great scenario for somebody. I don't know how sustainable it is, but right now he's like everybody's favorite player. You can't. There's nothing to hate about him. Like, even if you're I don't know, a Lions fan or a Packers fan or whatever, those teams that hate the Vikings, you just look at it and go, oh, well, fair play. Like, in terms of like putting in the work and getting this sort of in the position where you can lead a clearly pretty good team, you can't knock somebody that So yeah, fair play to Josh Dobbs, and a good win this week. Keep it up, him. I know he listens to this. So
just on the AFC South, sorry, the NFC South. I know obviously you obviously been a Falcons fan. You'll have maybe a bit more insight into this than I will, but is it even worth winning this division for a first round loss in the playoffs? Is it not just worth just resetting? And like, I'm not just talking about the Saints here. I'm talking about all 4 teams. Should it not just be a race to reset first? Because then you're on the upward swing winning the division whilst everyone else is still trying to reset.
Yeah, so I mean, the just to use, I really try to avoid talking about the. I'm so sorry, but to use my team as an example,
it's my fault.
We're second in the division, but we've also got currently the 10th overall pick in the draft. So like that's how you can either you can be one game off winning the division, or you can have a top 10 pick. Those are how fine the margins are in the NFC South. For the Saints, when I feel like, and I'm saying this with sincerity and not as somebody who wants to see the Saints fail. If I were a Saints fan, I would be all in on getting a top 10 pick and starting the rebuild when you have no money. Try and get the best possible talent you can when you have no money to pay them. And that means you don't have to go into free agency and then fill edge or sort of receiver or even quarterback or whatever. Just do that. I think the Falcons are on a very different sort of think they're on a very different path because they have money and they think that they have talent, but they clearly have a deficiency that, go back and listen to last week's podcast, won't be fixed until that is resolved. But if that they have to make playoffs to justify their jobs. I don't really know what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing. They're a weird one. I think they're probably in the same realm as the Saints in that I feel like they don't have much money and they've kind of got a lot of good players, but probably not enough to justify sort of going all in. I mean, the Panthers are funny because they don't have a first round pick, first overall, and they can't use it, which is great. So yeah, say if nothing else, the New Orleans Saints absolutely should. They absolutely should stop trying to win games for my sanity. But if you're a coach, I mean, I know it's that cop-out answer of, well, the coaches and players aren't built that way in the game and all that sort of stuff. But like, I think Dennis Allen has a job if they finish with a 6-11 record, for example. I don't know. If I'm head office or front office, I'm going, yeah. Let's just shut everything down and try and get ourselves back on track. But that's not particularly attractive to anybody with ambition. But yeah, everybody in the NFC South should give up. Full stop. Just fold the division. Start again.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you do have to take steps backwards to go forwards, don't you? I'm feeling this exactly with my own team now, but I don't know. And like you say, it's not good for the season ticket holders, like I said earlier. It's not good for anyone that's actually in the building, like job security and things like that. And, you know, it's on someone's resume, isn't it, that they were the coach who, you know, happened on their watch when the Great Reset happened for that team. It's not gonna be too attractive a job, was it? You know, if you're going into, you know, New Orleans next year when Dennis Allen doesn't have the job, or, you know, whoever's coaching the Panthers next year. Although I suppose the Panthers coaching staff is that team now, if they are resetting. But then, like you said, they don't have the picks to actually implement the rebuild just yet, which is a problem into itself. But yeah, congratulations to the Chicago Bears, who literally could not lose on Thursday night, by the way. Just in that game that was bizarrely on Thursday night. But then again, we're in the UK. We don't really watch Thursday night football unless it's our team. So I guess we're not really losing in that sense. But anyway, let's get away from talking about bad scenarios and let's talk about a good one in your game of the week, in a quarterback that we're just all talking about for the second week in a row.
Yeah, so as I said, this was my Sunday early evening was sort of red zone on the 6 o'clock kickoffs, and this was one that sort of held my attention right till the end, like beyond. Like the Falcons were kicking off at 9:05, and I was like, you know, I'm going to see this one out, and then sort of go to that, go to the Falcons, because like I don't I think there's something's going to happen here, and something did. CJ Stroud is the real deal. We talked about him quite a lot on this podcast, mainly because when a rookie quarterback looks really good, it's exciting because you can't help but think what they're going to be like in 5 years' time. They're going to be amazing. But like, he is really good. And it's one of those things where you kind of, I know there's the conversation doing the rounds online at the moment, which is CJ Stroud an MVP candidate? You can't really not make an argument against it beyond, well, it's his first season. But like, if he's doing this in his first season, what's he going to be like in his fifth season? He's really, the thing that I like most about him is that he's really safe. Like, he's played now 10 games, 9 games, 10 games, whatever it is, and he's thrown 2 interceptions, both of which I will say were, I feel, a little bit of him and a little bit of the receivers that he's throwing to. The throw that he was making on Sunday seemed to be positioned or was being thrown at an area of the field where a receiver was sort of 10 yards deeper in, and I feel like he was expecting his receiver to be flatter rather than going a bit of a slant. That's neither here nor there. It was a good defensive play, but he kind of made up for it. He's making throws that, like, you just love to see from it. If nothing else, you want the NFL to be fun, and arguably the most fun thing to watch is a big throw and a big catch, and he makes those to guys that don't really. I mean, I don't know who Tank Dell is, but he's making these throws to Tank Dell like Tank Dell's this insane wide receiver prospect. But like, the Bengals gave as good as they got as well. Like, they kind of started a bit, but then fought back, and they fought back. And Joe Burrow's got that thing that Patrick Mahomes has, and kind of Tom Brady had, and those types of guys have, which is like, they get one touchdown, you kind of know they're going to get the next one. It's like an inevitability kind of thing. But the Texans, when their back's against the wall and they know that they have to limit the Bengals to a field goal, or they're going to go behind with less than a minute on the clock, they do it. They did it, and I don't know how they did it because the Bengals were rolling. And then it's, well, let's give the ball to the kid and go and win us this game. And boy, did he! Like, he's just I don't know what CJ stands for, but I assume the C stands for clutch, because like he can come up with these plays that like seasoned professionals can struggle with. This is a really exciting time for the Texans, I suspect. I don't. Again, they're one of those teams where you go to the games in London, or I assume sort of Frankfurt, and you're looking around trying to count all the jerseys, and the Texans is always the last one you see because no one really supports the Texans. They're just a weird team. But man, if I were a Texans fan, I'd be so excited. And incredibly, they've gone from a really exciting quarterback in Deshaun Watson, regardless of how that ended, to a really exciting quarterback in CJ Stroud. Granted, because they were bad and had a lot of sort of really high picks, you can't help but be excited about what he can be. Now the Texans are 5-4. They are in that sort of division race. Like, if I'm, I think just kind of it was the Jaguars and I think maybe one or two sort of suggesting the Titans at the start of the season to win the AFC South. You can't help but sort of look at it and go, they've got a shot there. They can do that. That was a really impressive, and obviously when the game goes to the last minute, it's always like you've got Scott Hansen losing his mind over every single snap, which is always fun. I've got time. I know it's sort of meme him a bit, but he can be a lot of fun, especially when it's coming down to the last bit. But that was vintage red zone on Sunday. A really enjoyable one. Unfortunately ruined by what I had to watch next. But again, I'm not getting onto them. So no, that was a good game.
No, absolutely. Like, this is a good one for me because I'm quite happy to say this, that the Texans being much better than what a lot of people would give them credit for was actually probably my best preseason take that has come true. And, it's all down to CJ Stroud, essentially, because on paper, they're still the team that I thought, well, they've got quite a decent offensive line and they've got some decent veterans here and there that kind of made me make that point. But yes, the amount that CJ Stroud has come on and like improve these players is just making this a great take by me. But like you say, 5-4, the same as the Bengals. And the Bengals are a team obviously we talked about in recent times being back and being like, oh, watch out for the Bengals. They're going to be on the charge. They're still within a chance of winning the AFC North. But they've got the same record as the Texans, who a lot of people expected to be pretty bad. And like I say, it's down to CJ Stroud and just the coaching staff as well. Like DeMeco Ryans is well up there for Coach of the Year as well as CJ being MVP conversation candidate, like you say. But this is a problem for me on another score. Like long term, this is another problem because it's another great potential quarterback in the AFC. There's far too many of those. They need to be shipped out. Some teams need to change conference to be in the NFC because there's just too many good quarterbacks in the AFC. I don't think it's very fair. So, like you say, it's a good thing there are a million playoff spots because they're going to all go to good quarterbacks. So it'll be good in this conference anyway. I'm not sure about the NFC, which it's looking even less balanced now, isn't it? But yeah, this was, like I say, a great game. Went down to the wire, like you say, lots of points and lots of big plays, big throws from both quarterbacks because we shouldn't kind of we're kind of saying this from a Texan-centric point of view, but the Bengals played more than their part in this, and played a lot in the back and forth, like you say. Showed that they're going to be a threat moving forward as well. And like I said before, the AFC North is well and truly open. The Bengals are the bottom of that league, or that that division with 5-4 record, and there's plenty more games to go. So yeah, watch out because like we've been saying over the past few weeks, the AFC North is the best division in football and just the most competitive division, and it's going to go down to the wire, especially with the Browns and Ravens game, which again we probably should mention a little bit when we're finished with this game because that was crazy and is again just kind of mixing everything up in that division as well.
Yeah, I mean it just to stay in the AFC North for a little bit. We talked about Thursday night football and the Bears like in passing. To go from Bears Panthers one week to Bengals Ravens the next week is the most. Like in terms of how does that even happen? Like Thursday night's a weird prime time slot anyway, but you go from clearly the worst teams in the league to two of the best teams in the league. Anyway, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how they managed to wrangle that, but that made me laugh a little bit. But yeah, I just had a quick look at that division in particular. I still can't believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-3. And winning games, like they won again, and it's like again, what? Yeah.
I tweeted after it would have been they played at 6:00, so it would have been just before the Chargers kicking off. For example, I just tweeted saying Mike Tomlin is a wizard because, like you say, he just like refuses to have a sub 500 record, even though it's like he sets himself a challenge every year. Like, how bad can I make this team? In some respects, and still win loads of games and still have a winning culture because we talked about Matt Canada, plenty of people talked about Matt Canada. Kenny Pickett just isn't it. They I don't have time to pull it up on tweet. My friend sent me, she's a Steelers fan, and like the stats that are like show that the Steelers should have not even just a losing record but a really bad record are all there, but they don't. How? I don't know. This is very, very strange, but it's a marvel of modern coaching across sport. I would say that man just refuses to have a sub 500 record.
Yeah, you got to respect it, though, right? It's just like we talked about at the start of the season. He's just incredible. For them to even be relevant last season, and like, I mean, I was this close to saying good. They are objectively. They are, I don't know where I'm going to go, but they are a team who win games, and you that is the most important thing of all.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean I've just pulled up that tweet that I got sent by my friend. So she has sent me this tweet that says the Steelers have been outgained in every game all season. They have run fewer plays than their opponents all season. They have a minus 26 point differential, and they have a 6-3 record. How? It's not even possible. He's a wizard, like I said.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm changing my.
I don't know what happened.
I'm changing my meme of the week to being that you're a wizard, Harry, but with Mike Tomlin. Everyone knows
you're a wizard,
what that is, surely. If not, just Just YouTube it. It's insane. Anyway, so yeah, very briefly, we should probably mention the Ravens Browns craziness again. How that result went that way is absolutely beyond me, and because again, another game that went absolutely down to the wire. The Browns winning it, 33-31. How do we even explain this? If you had to explain this game to someone who didn't watch football, it would be impossible.
Yeah,
it would.
I mean, So I did what I try not to do and fired out a tweet halfway through that game, basically slating the Atlanta Falcons brass for trying to sign Deshaun Watson, and his performances over this season and last season being vindication or being living proof that they should not be making any decisions in a footballing capacity. Kind of full stop. And then it turns out that they go and win the game. And I don't know if it's actually anything really to do with him. I think we're kind of past the point of him kind of kicking off rust. This is now a year long. We've got a year of sort of pull. What's the word I'm looking for? Tape to pull through, I suppose. And the plays in which Deshaun Watson are making that you go, oh, that's Deshaun Watson. Are far outweighed by plays in which you go, who is this? Who is this? This imposter Sean Watson? Because like he's not certainly not living up to the contract that he's on at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, and he's certainly not living up to the trade that the Browns gave up to acquire him. That being said, they are 6-3, and they've just beaten the best team in one of the best teams in the AFC. And I don't know how much of that they could have done without him. So I don't know how they lost this one. The Ravens they lose games. They've been losing games this season in the most bizarre fashion. They've been beating teams left, right, and center, and still finding ways to lose those games. And I don't know how much of that is a coaching issue. I don't know if that's a player issue. Certainly felt like Lamar was sort of more limited this week than he has been in the past. I still don't think you can sort of take anything away from what he's done all season. He's incredible, this, that, the other. But this was a game that they absolutely should have won and didn't. And I don't know what you can kind of take from that other than, well, we should have won that kind of thing. Like, what do you? It's just one of the, like, you can't even like go into practice this week and just put up the tape and then like literally every single play you go, oh, it's one of them, because it was one of them all night. Well, half the night. But yeah, it's that's weird, bizarre, but it keeps that division that much closer. So
it does. It was the best result for drama, content, etc., excitement towards the end of the season. The Browns scored 16 points in the fourth quarter. That's where the comeback obviously came from. Outscoring the Ravens scored 7 in the fourth quarter, so outscoring them in the dying stages of the game, which obviously is what it comes down to a lot of the time. Both defenses are really good. That's potentially what's affected Lamar. Obviously, throws two interceptions, which obviously is a problem against a team that can keep it close like Cleveland. And to me, like, the Ravens in this game, from what I saw, didn't use the things available to them that were kind of obviously available to them. And what I mean by that, obviously, you've got Keaton Mitchell, who has kind of burst onto the scene this season. He had a touchdown, a long touchdown. He got 3 carries. Odell Beckham scored a vintage Odell touchdown, taking a slant 40 yards or whatever it was. Did they do it again? No, that was his only reception of the season. Of the game. Just do that over and over again. That's essentially what he's famous for. Aside from Michael Thomas, like, Odell is slant boy, number 2, isn't he, really? And not so much anymore, but he always had the athleticism and the speed and the shiftiness to house it. He did that yesterday. Just you don't need him to score a touchdown every time he does it, but just like spam the easy passes that you've got, spam the easy plays that you've got, especially when you're trying to stall away a lead late in the game when you're up and things like that. Just stops that comeback from happening if they just throw short passes to Odell or just give like their running back, who seems like he's got some juice, some ball, especially because Lamar wasn't at his best throughout the whole game. Just kind of do the things that are good and work, and like just go out with the win and just continue. And it just gives the Browns the sniff, doesn't it? Because obviously, like I say, it's within one game now, and then obviously, they're going to have the tiebreaker and all that sort of stuff, and it just stops all that stuff from happening if you're the Ravens. If you just do the easy things that are available to you, and I think that's where they let it get away from them. Aside from making the mistakes, like we said, like with Lamar's interceptions and things like that.
Yeah, pretty much. It just comes down to what's the saying? Take what the defense gives you, kind of thing. And if the defense is giving you Odell Beckham free on a slant over and over again, there are worse players that you can be throwing the ball to. Just do it, just kind of thing. Just like you don't need to make it any more difficult on yourself. Like you're not trying to beat yourself and the opposition. Just do what they. Yeah, if they're willing to let you have that space, just put the ball there, and that'll happen. I mean, I if any organization is going to look at that defeat and find the way that's going to sort of eliminate that next week, it's probably the Ravens. Just like they are in there with a handful of organizations that you just kind of go, well, they're just good. They've just got good people in every sort of ability. They won't make the same mistakes again next week. Opening myself up for the inevitable clip in this. It's like they won't make the same mistakes next week as they're battered across where I don't even know where they're playing.
The Bengals, you said it yourself earlier.
Of course I did. Thursday night they get slapped. Wrap this up and go to bed because that's inexcusable there. No, it's from a neutral on the other side of the league. I'm looking at that and going, 3 of those teams are pretty fun or can be pretty fun. And God help me when I have to watch the Steelers again. But I will for the purpose of this. So yeah.
I mean, if the Ravens don't get it right against the Bengals on Thursday night, they've then got a really long week to Sunday Night Football the next week when they play the Chargers, which is the get right game that they'll need. So it's fine, Baltimore. Don't worry, you've got at least one win coming out the next 2. And that dour attitude that I'm going to take is going to take me into our meme moments, because my meme this week is I'm a big Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan. It's one of my shows that I just watch, like if there's nothing on or if I just want to watch something that I just know, like the lines and things like that. Favorite character, Captain Holt, the best character in pretty much any TV series ever. So Captain Holt, in his way, saying, I've never been happier, kind of relates to me watching the Chargers yesterday. They're bad. They played the Lions close. There should be excitement. There was excitement for neutral fans, I'm sure. I want the coaching staff gone because I'm watching Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen put together a masterful performance, and there was very little excitement because I just know which way it's going to go. So when we score, I am Raymond Holt. I want the season done. I'm sure you can empathise.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking before. I don't want to totally rehash our conversation, but like it must be so frustrating as a fan to know that you have to score 40 points a game to stand a chance of winning, let alone sort of to guarantee a win. Justin Herbert's incredible. He's amazing. He's a quarterback who can make every throw and he can move as well. He's so much fun to watch, and I feel so bad. Because he has to trot out every week knowing that he has to be absolutely perfect. And if he's even slightly off, some idiot on Twitter is going to clip that one throw and go, "Oh, he's a bust." It's like, oh. Like, come on, no, he's great. Come on, but yeah, like Tabe, I'm sure, is listening to this, rubbing his hands, waiting for me to say whatever about the Lions. Really good team.
Really good
can't
team.
Believe, can't believe it. Can't believe it. Jared Goff, who I thought has been pretty bad for the majority of his career, making me looking like an idiot. He looks so good. He looks so good that the offense is clicking. I feel quite bad for the Lions long term because the offensive coordinator is not going to be there next year. So look forward to seeing how they come to sort of work through that. But yeah, I feel exactly the same way as you. Well, we support the same team just in different colours.
Just on a couple of things that you just said there. First of all, you mentioned Ben Johnson, the Lions OC. Hopefully, he's not their OC next year because I want him as the Chargers head coach next year. And just on that note, there's a little rumbling on Twitter that the Chargers want Dan Quinn. So will you still feel sorry for me then when we've got the...
So presumably Dan Quinn as a head coach,
head
right?
Coach.
This isn't going to be a side.
Yeah, head coach. Yeah.
You'll have a fun second season. But no.
This is the thing I wanted to get your opinion on when we were not talking about it previously. So yeah, this is
Dan Quinn is Dan Quinn is exactly what you have at the moment with less hair. He's clearly a very, very intelligent. He's clearly a very, very intelligent defensive mind. He can get his defenses up and playing, and like so hyped. Like regardless of how good they are, they will all play. People will play for him because he's a very. He seems like he is a good leader, not necessarily sort of charismatic when it comes to the public stuff, but that doesn't matter. His players will get behind him, but I don't see what that does or what he would bring to the Chargers right now, other than the experience of having sort of having a second chance kind of thing. He came to the Falcons. Just bad defense forever. The Falcons and sort of half fixed them. They were never very good, but they were opportunistic. But when the opportunities, when teams sort of tried to sort of ultimately figured out where the players were going to be, that they just threw away from them. So I can't sort of endorse him as the Chargers head coach because I don't see what he will do that you don't already have, other than just be a different face for it. And that wouldn't fill me with too much optimism if I were a Chargers fan. I do think that he will be a head coach somewhere. I would sooner him be somewhere on a defense that doesn't need to be totally rebuilt. I think your best bet would be just to pair him with the smartest offensive mind you can, Ben Johnson or whoever, and then just try and bring in sort of an older head who can kind of get it done. Just a different pair of eyes. Stay clear of Dan Quinn. He will be a head coach and he is a good coach. I don't think it's a good fit. That's where I'm going with that. Yeah, but you will get to the Super Bowl in the second year, and you'll be so heartbroken at the end that you'll never talk about it again, I imagine.
It does sound remarkably similar to what we've got. So yeah, I'll stay clear of that one. Not something that excites me. Not something that I want in terms of I don't really want to be a defensive coach again. We need to go with the league really and get someone who's offensive minded and will unleash Justin Herbert to his fullest potential. Anyway, let's not talk about our teams anymore and let's get back to having fun and talk about some memes.
Yeah, so my one is, I don't know what you call it. So I've seen this meme format in the past and it always makes me laugh. I can't remember who posted it. It just appeared in one group that I was in. But it's just a guy crying. And next to him is the caption, me thinking about Josh Dobbs, again, toying with the Falcons defense last week. And then it cuts to just a guy laughing. He's got his glasses rolled down. He's having a whale of a time. It's like, it's me thinking about the Saints defense being toyed by Josh Dobbs. That was me. And I was giggling at that. I sent that to every single group chat that I was in, every single time. And every single time someone went, this is silly. It's like, yeah, I know, but it's me. And it's funny. I don't know. I wish I could give credit for this one because I don't know where it came from. It'll be up on the screen. It will make more sense than me trying to explain it. But yeah. It's that Schadenfreude thing of that was me last week, and now you've got to deal with it, and it's funny now. So yeah,
absolutely, that's what it's all about. That's exactly what it's all about. That's what sports fandom's all about as well, in a lot of ways. But so yeah, no, really good ones there. Let's move into the last bit then. Finish off with our Monday night football predictions. Last week, I kind of tried the reverse jinx. It didn't work. Well, the Chargers got the win, so that was good. But didn't get any points. So there'd be no touchdowns. Thankfully, there was. Otherwise, just be a terrible game, which it was. You guys both got a point each for a Chargers win. We don't need to talk any more about that. This week, Broncos going to the Bills. What's your prediction?
Yeah, so I've gone Bills 21, Broncos 17. This is I do think the Bills are good, but they're in a bit of a weird situation where I can't count on them to sort of get it done when they clearly should. And I think we've talked about this sort of fairly recently. It may well have been sort of last week, but like if Josh Allen isn't sort of great, the Bills are kind of sort of struggling. And the Broncos are a team that are very bad, but they've come up with some pretty good results recently. And it's just got the sort of it feels to me like it could potentially be one of those trap games or whatever. And I'm not necessarily saying that the Bills. I'm not necessarily saying the Bills will lose because I've predicted them to win. But it feels like I feel like we come away with it with more sort of questions over the Bills than we do sort of answers. This is an opportunity for them to come up against a bad team and really sort of demonstrate who they actually are. And if they come away from it having sort of won by 4 points I've gone with, I don't think that really answers many questions. I've also got Josh Allen to be picked off twice on the basis that he has to do it all himself. So he's going to make those Josh Allen-y sort of superhero type plays that you kind of look at in hindsight and go, all right, okay. But when they come off, they're incredible. So that's where I'm going with it. They'll win, but it will be a bad win if there is such a thing. It'll be one of those where you kind of they might start moving down people's power rankings after this one. It
raises more questions than answers.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I mean, I've heard this pretty similar sort of thought. Really, they've got a relatively similar score. I've going for the Bills to beat the Broncos 27-14, which isn't so it's a larger margin of victory. But I think my prop bet is for Stephon Diggs to go over 125 yards, and that's because, as you rightly say, Josh Allen's having to do it all. I think he's just going to pepper Diggs and he's just going to tear him up because the Broncos, like you say, are pretty bad. And I think this will just be a get-right game of sorts for the Bills where they'll, welcome in a poorer opponent and they'll beat them relatively easily without much of a way of drama or anything like that. Probably exactly the opposite. But yeah, we'll see. It should be a relatively good game, I think, for anyone staying up. The Bills, like you say, good team, got some exciting players, so worth staying up for, especially if you're a Bills fan. So we'll see how we go next week with that one. That pretty much wraps us up for this week. But yeah, like I say, plug for the week of content. So 5 wide from Willow, winners and losers from myself and Peter. We're coming out in the next couple of days. Whole bunch of NFL stuff coming out mainly on Wednesday, and then college football, CFL, and all the rest of it, fantasy and like after that. But yeah, like I say, head over to touchdown.co.uk, follow us on Twitter at the Touchdown NFL, and like I say, thanks very much for staying with us for this one, and we'll see you next week.